So this is chapter 7 of Canto 1. The first section of the Canto 1 was Vyasadev's meditation to compile Srimad Bhagavatam. And after compiling, he taught it to Shukadev Goswami. And through this episode, we saw the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. And also, that completes the answer to the question by the sages of Naimisharanya to Suta Goswami, asking why, how, and where this great literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, was compiled, and what was the inspiration behind this compilation. So that question was answered from 4th chapter onwards until the 7th chapter, until the verses 11. So now that topic is concluded. So now there are two remaining questions that the sages had asked. One is about Parikshit Maharaj, his birth, his becoming a king, and how did he rule, and why was he cursed. So basically, history of Parikshit Maharaj, and also a little history of Swami was questioned. Oh, he was so renounced. How did he meet a king? How did the people recognize him? And all those questions. That will come at the end of Parikshit Maharaj's life. So that is why Swami chooses to speak about Parikshit Maharaj before Shukadev Goswami. Ideally, if somebody asks questions about a disciple and a guru, who would you describe first? Guru is usually described first. However, here, Shukadeva Goswami's history or mention will come a little later. Of course, Shukadeva Goswami is from the very beginning, right in the third verse, later in the second chapter, like that. He is always there. However, the question warrants before explaining the history of Parikshit Maharaj first. That's why Suta Goswami begins with Parikshit Maharaj's life first. And that's what is going to begin from verses 12. And we will see some striking similarities in this chapter with the Bhagavad Gita because it is a continuation of Mahabharata. Bhagavatam is considered as the continuation of Mahabharata, and however, it does not go into anything and everything. Rather, it remains focused on Krishna and around Krishna and his devotees. Whatever was the narration after the Mahabharata war ended, that's where the Bhagavatam begins with and emphasizes pure devotional service without any confusion, and also glorifies both devotion and the qualities of devotees that we will see in this chapter. And this is essentially the first narration in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So far, it was more of like a discussion between Suta Goswami and Shaunakadi Rishis, and we are continuing in the same vein. However, now the discussion between them has come to directly to the topics related to the introducing Srimad Bhagavatam setting. So currently, we are very close to the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, the actual narration between Sukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. And even then, it's going to take 11, 12 more chapters. However, we are closer to the narration of Srimad Bhagavatam. We are going to now focus on the primary two characters of Srimad Bhagavatam's conversation. So from here on, anything that happens would have directly or indirectly some connection to the description of either Parikshit Maharaj's life or Sukadeva Goswami's life from now on in the Canto 1. So with this short introduction, verses 12 onwards, Aswatthama, we will see the story. I know many of you already know this pastime, most of us, that Aswatthama kills the sleeping sons of Draupadi after the Mahabharata war. And Arjuna is naturally very angry and he vows to kill Aswatthama. And then Arjuna and they encounter the Brahmastra of Aswatthama. So then Arjuna offers prayers and Krishna instructs him. And how does Arjuna pass this test of Krishna in terms of punishing Aswatthama at the same time keeping up proper dharma and compassion? So that is what is the rest of the chapter. It's a very emotional drama if you immerse yourself in the translations and see that particular, situation. If we put ourselves in that situation and assume what the characters must be going through, it's a highly emotional drama. And we will see why is Srimad Bhagavatam beginning with such a heartbreaking setting. Introducing Parikshit Maharaj's story is the theme of this whole section. From this chapter until the 18th chapter, it is just introducing Parikshit Maharaj's story. So it's just beginning here though. And we will see a lot of details, but it's all related to Parikshit. And that's why Suta begins narrating the story of Krishna and Parikshit Maharaj. And then the setting we will see. 12th verse is a very nice verse and also is the first verse for today's discussion. So I thought let's read the purport of Srila Prabhupada. Very nice purport and very nice verse also. Translation. Sutas addressed the rishis headed by Shaunaka. Now I shall begin the transcendental narration of the Lord Sri Krishna and topics of the birth activities and deliverance of King Parikshit, the sage amongst kings, as well as the topics of the renunciation of the worldly order by the sons of Pandu. Karma Vilanam. So I'll explain to you Janma Karma, that is the birth and activities of Parikshit, who is a great saintly king. Not just that, how the sons of Pandavas, actually take to renunciation. That also I will. But he says, I'll say all these topics which are Krishna Katha. So Prabhupada picks up on this particular word Krishna Katha and explains what is really Krishna Katha. Because is it just about Krishna? Is it also about his devotees? Which is very natural. Knowing Prabhupada and having heard from him, we all know Krishna Katha not just includes direct pastimes of Krishna alone, but also his devotees. But Prabhupada still clarifies it, and it is very purifying to hear. So let's read the purport. Lord Krishna is so kind to the fallen souls that he personally incarnates himself amongst the different kinds of living entities and takes part with them in daily activities. So usually we consider daily activities as very mundane. Waking up, cooking, doing chores is usually considered as a grind, daily grind. As part of life, it's monotonous. However, when Krishna personally incarnates also, he does those very same things. Mother Yashoda is churning butter, or Nanda Maharaj is taking and speaking to the other cowherd men, or the boys are taking the cows to or the calves to the forest, or if when it is in Vrindavan, it's like that. Or when you come to Dwarka, Krishna is waking up in the morning and he's meditating and he's having interactions with his family, wife, children, and then he goes to Sudharma hall and then he comes back in the evening and he actually relaxes with them. So it seems like a watching a any TV serial or something. It just feels like daily activities of a normal person. But Prabhupada, right in the first line, gives such an enlightening understanding that so kind to the fallen souls. So these activities, if you just read Krishna waking up in the morning and going to the forest with the calves in Vrinda, that is not any daily activity. So that is out of Krishna's mercy. He has come personally incarnated into this world and among the living entities, among the human beings, and takes part with them in daily activities. So then they become pastimes. So similarly, in this particular pastime, we will see how Krishna is interacting with the Pandavas, going through the life's tragedies, the good moments and the bad moments. He shares both all of those moments with the Pandavas. And we may think, oh, it's all like mundane, like these are normal people. But then maybe this is not Krishna Katha because it is just involving with some kids' death or like some people who died in Mahabharata war. So how is it transcendental? So any historical fact, old or new, which has a connection with the activities of the Lord is to be understood as a transcendental narration of the Lord. Without Krishna, all the supplementary literatures like the Puranas and Mahabharata are simply stories or historical facts. But with Krishna, they become transcendental. And when we hear of them, we at once become transcendentally related with the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam is also a Purana, but the special significance of this Purana is that the activities of the Lord are central and not just supplementary historical facts. Srimad Bhagavatam is thus recommended by Lord Sri Chaitanya as the spotless Purana. So here Prabhupada is saying any Purana or Mahabharata, anything, when they're just simply stories or historical facts having no connection with Krishna. And when you see people taking them out of context or ripping apart from Krishna's holy transcendental presence, then surely they lose their transcendental nature. So that's why Prabhupada is saying Srimad Bhagavatam is specifically given a special significance by Sri Prabhu because it is very interwoven with the activities of the Supreme Lord. There is a class of less intelligent devotees of the Bhagavad Purana who desire to relish at once the activities of the Lord narrated in the 10th canto without first understanding the primary cantos. They are under the false impression that the other cantos are not concerned with Krishna, and thus more foolishly than intelligently, they take to the reading of the 10th canto. These readers are specifically told herein that the other cantos of the Bhagavatam are as important as the 10th canto. No one should try to go into the matters of the 10th canto without having thoroughly understood the purport of the other nine cantos. Krishna and his pure devotees, like the Pandavas, are on the same plane. This is such a powerful line. Krishna and his pure devotees, like the Pandavas, are on the same plane. Krishna is not without his devotees of all the rasas, and the pure devotees, like the Pandavas, are not without Krishna. The devotees and the Lord are interlinked, and they cannot be separated. Therefore, talks about them are all Krishna Katha or topics of the Lord. That's why Sutta Goswami is saying, Krishna, first he said, I'll speak about the life and activities of Parikshit and how Pandu's sons took to renunciation. And then he says, all these topics which are Krishna Katha, I'll explain to you. So that's why Prabhupada is explaining that Krishna and his pure devotees like the Pandavas are on the same plane. Krishna is not without his devotees of all the rasas. Usually we think Krishna, Radharani, Madhurya Rasa, maybe a little bit Vatsalya, and a little bit Sakya. We don't want to go outside Vrindavan. We may think less about others. That's why Prabhupada is specifically here. He's saying Krishna is not without his devotees of all the rasas, and pure devotees like the Pandavas are not without Krishna. I think there is not much to explain here. We just wanted to read Prabhupada's purport, and we'll go with the narration of the story. So after the war, now that Sutta Goswami has explained that he's going to speak, he begins to speak from verse 13 onwards. He says, after the war, Aswatthama murders Draupadi's 5 sons in their sleep and presents their heads to Duryodhana, who's displeased. So the background is that Aswatthama was very heartbroken to see that Duryodhana lost the war and he was dying. And he was also the last commander for the war. So he thought somehow or other he has to avenge for. So he actually goes on to kill the sons. Actually, he wanted to kill the 5 Pandavas while they were sleeping. And when he enters in the mid dead of the night after a huge battle, you can imagine how tired people must be. So he enters into a tent thinking that it is the Pandava, but actually realizes, because he crushes the heads and the heads crushes. So he realizes these are not Pandavas. However, he thinks, okay, what is even better, to kill the Pandavas or their sleeping sons, because they will even more be mortified and they will live on to experience the pain of having lost all their sons. So he actually beheads all the 5 sleeping sons of Draupadi, and he takes their head to Duryodhana, thinking that Duryodhana, because he is in a dying condition, he will just hear that he has killed all the 5 Pandavas and he will become happy. When he says, I have beheaded all the 5 Pandavas, Duryodhana is not able to believe Ashwatthama. He says, okay, bring the heads here. And he crushes and the heads crush. He says, what have you done? These must be younger children. And then he says, these are actually sons of Draupadi. And even Duryodhana disapproves of this heinous act. Imagine. So when even a villain of the whole Mahabharata disapproves an activity, he was not pleased in the least, because he thought, okay, my whole dynasty is going. But in the Kuru dynasty, it is these few people who are left behind who have to take it forward. And if you have killed the 5 sons of Draupadi, so he sees that it's not good for the whole parampara, for the Kuru dynasty. And even he is displeased. And naturally, later, actually, Krishna also says that Ashwatthama was condemned because, first of all, the act was heinous, and it was no gentleman would do that, no warrior would do that. And second of all, even whoever he tried to please, even that person was not subscribing to this, and even that person disapproved this. So he has no standing whatsoever on this particular act. There is no way he can justify this act. And Prabhupada speaks in this purport that there are 2 kinds of Krishna Katha, that Gita is Krishna Katha because it is spoken by the Lord, and Bhagavatam is also Krishna Katha because it is spoken about the Lord. That's one point he makes in that purport. And then, now that the sons were beheaded, and imagine a mother going to check in the morning how her sons are sleeping, and then comes to know that the sons were actually killed, not just killed, but they were also beheaded alive. And there is nothing more like heartbreaking than that. So Draupadi, the mother of the 5 children of the Pandavas, I'm reading 15th verse, after hearing the massacre of her sons, began to cry in distress with eyes full of tears. Trying to pacify her in her great loss, Arjuna spoke to her thus. Arjuna speaks to pacify Draupadi and also as a warrior. He says, "O gentle lady, when I present you with the head of that Brahmana, after beheading him with the arrows from my Gandiva bow, I shall then wipe the tears from your eyes and pacify you. Then, after burning your sons' bodies, you can take your bath standing on his head." Fitting a Kshatriya, he takes a vow. He has beheaded your sons, I will behead his head. I will behead him. And standing on his head, you can take your bath after burning your sons' bodies. So he's really angry. And so Arjuna promises to behead the aggressor, because Ashwatthama is an aggressor now, even though he's a Brahmana or a son of a Brahmana. He has acted in a very heinous way. It is below human act. So he acted like a butcher, and that's the kind of punishment he is going to be facing. And that's what Arjuna is promising Draupadi that he will do. And in verse 17, Arjuna requests, again, Krishna becomes the driver of Arjuna. So this is at the end of the Mahabharata. This is after 18 days. Before 18 days, the same thing happened. Arjuna and Krishna were also playing the same roles. Arjuna was the driver. So Arjuna was the warrior and Krishna was the driver. So it's a very similar situation how Bhagavatam begins and how Bhagavad Gita begins. They both begin with Krishna and Arjuna being the fighter and Krishna being the charioteer. However, we will see the mood of Arjuna and Krishna is very different in this section than in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna, who's guided by the infallible Lord as Krishna as friend and driver, thus satisfied the dear lady by such statements. Then he dressed in armor and armed himself with furious weapons, and getting into his chariot, he set out to follow Aswatthama, the son of his martial teacher. Aswatthama, the murderer of the princess, seeing from a great distance Arjuna coming at him with great speed, fled in his chariot, panic-striven, just to save his life, as Brahma fled in fear from Shiva. Prabhupada writes in this purport, he explains Rudra Bhakaha. So it could be Rudra Bhayadyat or Rudra Bhakaha, means when Brahma was attracted to his daughter, Shiva became infuriated, and that when he tried to attack Brahma, he fled from Lord Shiva. That is one episode. That could be one reading. But Prabhupada says there is also another reading. It could be Rudra Bhakaha, which is when a demon named Vidyunmali, who was given a glowing golden airplane by Lord Shiva, he was following sun and making night disappear. So sun got very irritated that this Vidyunmali is coming behind him and not obstructing his work. So the sun actually melts the plane of the golden airplane given by Lord Shiva to Vidyunmali. And when Lord Shiva hears about, he becomes enraged, and then he attacks sun god, and sun god actually goes and at last falls down at Kashi, and then Kashi gets the name Lolarka, where sun fell. So where sun fell to sleep, Lola can also be called as sleep. So Lola. So where sun fell. So that's a side story. Don't ask me questions about that. The main story is Tama is being chased by Arjuna. So basically Arjuna is with a lot of anger. He's being compared to Rudra. You can imagine the comparison here is Arjuna's anger to Rudra's anger. That is how you can imagine his sons were beheaded. How much anger would be there as a Kshatriya in his mind. And he's not just going to be angry, because sometimes common people, some kind of injustice is done to them. There's so much anger. People come out on the road, they'll do strikes, they will do dharna and all kinds of things. However, here he is a warrior, so he's going to he's going to seek justice. And the kind of anger he has is being compared to Rudra, who usually, the Rudra avatar is usually the avatar for destruction, annihilation. So that is why here he's being compared to Rudra, because he is almost wants to completely vanquish Aswatthama. His anger was so decisive. So when the son of Brahmana, Aswatthama, saw that his horses were tired, he considered that there was no alternative for protection outside of his using the ultimate weapon, the Brahmastra nuclear weapon. So here again, Brahmastra is a very powerful weapon. Dronacharya did not want to teach his son because he knew his son was not qualified to have that weapon. However, because his son was very adamant, especially knowing that Dronacharya has taught to Arjuna Brahmastra, Brahma really pesters Dronacharya and emotionally blackmails him that I'm your son, you wouldn't teach me, but you will teach to Arjuna, so you be with Arjuna. So it was an emotional blackmail that eventually he gives in out of his fatherly affection and teaches Ashwatthama the Brahmastra. However, he does not teach him how to retract it. He only teaches him how to launch it, assuming that this would deter Ashwatthama from using it ever, because he only knows half of it. So he will think, hey, if I launch it, I'm supposed to retract it. So if I won't retract, it will create like a huge problem. So knowing that, he would never use it. So that is the, what do you call, that is the psychology of Dronacharya. However, when people are put into danger, they would do what is unthinkable. So Ashwatthama, life is at fear. So when it is coming to self-preservation, I'm not justifying Ashwatthama's activities. We are just trying to understand psychology of this person. That even within relationships, sometimes you see when people are cornered, they will start saying all your secrets. They'll start saying, oh, you think you are great, you also did that. So it is not coming because they want to hurt. It is like they are in a position of self-preservation. So sometimes people would start attacking others out of self-preservation. Here Ashwatthama, he's seeing that his life is under threat. Immediately, the only powerful, because his father is gone, he has no more father to take shelter. And out of desperation, he did something which even Duryodhana was not approved, and he died. So the pain that you could never be a successful person in life. You could never impress anybody. He could never impress all his life his father. He is the son of Dronacharya, but he was never known for his archery skills as much as Arjuna was known. So he was a failure with his father. He was a failure as a warrior. Then at last, after Bhishma died, after Drona died, after Karna died, after everybody is gone, then finally, without any other option, he was made into a commander-in-chief. And even at that time, he could not do anything to save the army or save the Mahabharata war. So it was him, under his leadership, finally the Kauravas fell. So he was a failure there. And at the last ditch attempt, he tried to kill the sons of Draupadi. Even that was not pleasing to Duryodhana. So he was a failure. Imagine a person's consciousness or the depression that a person would go through to consider oneself as a failure constantly. So seeking validation from externally can not only cause trouble to our own lives, it can actually make the life of everyone around us as into a complete, miserable life. So people who seek validation constantly from others, not only are they actually miserable, they make everyone else who's in their life also miserable. It's not fun to live with someone who's constantly seeking validation from others. So validation, to some extent, yes, it needs to come from outside. We are all human beings, so some acknowledgement, some appreciation can be required and is necessary. However, if we constantly think my value is based on how others look at me, then we will not be happy with, even if we give the best of the things in our lives, still we'll always be self-conscious. We'll never be able to appreciate that. So that applies even within devotional service also. So we can have the best opportunities possible. We may get to serve our spiritual teachers. We may get to do so many things, services, everything. But if it is for our validation, so then our egos will be hurt even then in that situation. The best of the opportunities externally, but internally we cannot be peaceful. We cannot be devotionally uplifted, because purification happens through that way also initially. However, eventually we have to go to a place where we have to internally connect with the service, connect with the opportunity, and just be pleased with that opportunity to serve. Not we are pleased only when that is noticed and when it is validated, but just to be able to be pleased with the service itself, that opportunity to serve. That itself is a fortune. To be pleased with that is better. Otherwise, no one in this world can actually fully validate us and make us happy if we are not satisfied internally. So here, Ashwatthama, this whole episode would not have come if he had personal value. If he had self-worth, this would not have happened. So for lack of self-worth, then people go attacking others. So here, Ashwatthama is externally doing it, but we would probably do it when we are, what do you call, when we are not, when we don't have enough self-worth. Then when in the absence of other devotees or other people, we might just attack them. That person, we may be envious because of our lack of self-worth. Then when they are not there, we may just discount their efforts or discount their credits or discount their hard work or sincerity. I know who's that person is. So then it would come out as offenses. So this is all, we everything starts with our own connection with Krishna. When we are satisfied with our connection with Krishna, then we will not be disturbed when others have better worth than us externally. And that is why here we are beginning with Ashwatthama, because Ashwatthama may not be a devotee, but a practicing devotee can have these kind of attitudes of wanting to please everybody and wanting to have external approach devotional service externally, and see even devotional service also as a means to get external credits or external validation. And that is why here Ashwatthama's character is the first character showing us that if we constantly seek for validation, even within devotional service or circles in association, we might end up doing so many things which would not actually be very pleasing to our master. And out of desperation, we might do things which is not good for our bhakti. And here Ashwatthama launches Brahmastra, and he does not even know how to retract that Brahmastra. And still, out of desperation, he just releases it. And in the 20th verse, if you see, it's a Brahmanical weapon, it is Brahmastra. Since his life was in danger, he touched water in sanctity and concentrated upon the chanting of the hymns for throwing nuclear weapons, although he did not know how to withdraw such weapons. Prabhupada writes, the subtle forms of material activities are finer than grosser methods of material manipulation. Such subtle forms of material activities are effected through purification of sound. The same method is adopted here by chanting hymns to act as nuclear weapons. So what Prabhupada is saying is these weapons are subtler than grosser methods of today's military arsenal any advanced country can have. The warheads and the nuclear weapons and the drone attacks. So the aerial warfare, all that we have is all very gross. However, here Prabhupada is saying these weapons that they are using, they are very subtle. So they have to be invoked by mantra. So you can imagine Ashwatthama has enough sanctity and intelligence and spiritual understanding to chant mantras properly, to touch water in sanctity, to do basically achaman, and to concentrate upon the hymns of the hymns for throwing weapons. So even for those activities, they had that level of refined sense and guna. Still, however, it is contaminated here. Still, it was a different age. And we can see, even, I don't want it to be overwhelming, but I cannot but stop thinking, related to more to devotee circles. Like sometimes we see multiple parties are devotees. However, when there is a conflict, they may actually, I have heard, like they may even pray to the Lord for their own protection. At the same time, they may also even say, okay, nothing, they will take care of that devotee who's not acting according to my desire or things like that. So we may again use bhakti in the mode of ignorance. But bhakti in the mode of ignorance is that using devotion service to actually cause harm, either externally or subtly, to drag down someone's good name or to actually physically harm or to harm someone's reputation. In this way, bhakti can also be applied in the mode of ignorance. So that's what here we see. Even though Ashwatthama has the spiritual training, he's using it for destruction. He is completely in the cover, using it for mode of ignorance. And that could be just extrapolated to our own immediate circumstances, that we might have good intentions practicing devotees. Sometimes out of desperation, we might wish wish not the best for someone else. So I was hearing a lecture recently where it was said, the speaker was saying that the symptom of a Vaishnava is he's a good wisher of everyone. So yes, chanting Hare Krishna is a symptom of a Vaishnava, and engaging in service, devotional service, is a symptom of a Vaishnava. But the highest symptom of Vaishnava is that Vaishnava is a good well-wisher of everybody at heart. And that's what we see in Prahlad Maharaj's pastime, that even though he was being tortured and attempted to kill by Hiranyakashipu, still when Narsingadev offered, please take some boons, please take some boons, please take some boons. And imagine when Narsingadev with all his fierce form 3 times tells you, please take your boon. Probably you will think, oh, if I say no to the third time, then he's going to be angry at me. You may think, oh, okay, Narsingadev Pangalega means why would I actually say no to Narsingadev? When he insists, then imagine Narsingadev insists you with his fierce form, no, take your boons. Prahlad Maharaj would have said, oh, okay, I don't want to enrage Narsingadev. Just to pacify him, let me take a personal boon. No. He says, no, I'm not doing a business with you. I don't want any boons, but you can forgive my father. So that is where actually Narasimhadev is offering those boons to bring out the character of Prahlad Maharaj, to show that he did not have even a trace of anger, or he did not hold it against Hiranyakashipu at all. Rather, he wants to be a well-wisher of his father. So here we will see the same way that Arjuna will be tested by Krishna, will be told to do many things, and will be asked to decide in order to bring out the glories of what is a who's a. So Bhagavad is started with Dharma Pranam Satam. So Dharma Projita means that this literature destroys or like rejects all kinds of cheating religion, and it is meant for people Pranam Satam, who are Paramahamsas, who are non-envious in heart. And that's what we will see here. That what is the caliber of Arjuna, what is the caliber of these devotees of Krishna, that they actually can purchase Krishna. So what is the price that they pay for buying Krishna as a personal property? So that is what is this particular pastime. These are extreme circumstances in order to attract our attention, and also to emphasize that even in such extreme circumstances, a true devotee of Krishna, what is their attitude? How do they behave? And the way I'm suddenly giving so many purpose, I don't know if I'll finish this section today. I'm very sorry, but we will go ahead with the thing. So the Lord intervenes and protects is the theme of Arjuna's prayers and Krishna's instructions. This is verses 21 to 28. And thereupon a glaring light spread in all directions. It was so fierce that Arjuna thought his own life in danger. So he began to address Lord Sri Krishna. So Brahmastra is launched by Aswatthama, and Arjuna is realizing there is a glaring light spreading in all directions, and he realizes something is not ordinary. He understands that his own life in danger, and he immediately addresses Lord Sri Krishna. Hare Krishna Sundar. I think you are on. I'm not able to hear you, Prabhu. Can others hear him? Okay.
No,
Prabhu, you are on. You are not on mute.
Yeah, no?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, sorry about that. So my question was, this was 22, where it's declared that Krishna is the only protection. We devotees, can we pray for anything and everything to Krishna? Or is there any truth to the fact that the demigods, we should approach them and not disturb Krishna for certain things? Which one should we take?
I think Narasimhadev is that Lord who you can go for everything. And it all depends on your mood. It all depends on your mood. So you can continue to pray to Radha Krishna or to Viraji or Narasimhadev, whoever is your lordships. Ultimately, as a son, who would the son go to if they are in trouble? A son or a daughter would go to their parents. So similarly, in that mood, you can pray. But eventually, Krishna himself says, this is a famous verse, that the demigods are praying. So now, yes, Krishna does not satisfy desires like how the demigods would satisfy. Krishna satisfies in such a way that you will not ask those things for again. So he knows what is the best thing for us. So just because we ask, he won't fulfill everything, especially if you're practicing. He won't just fulfill everything according to our desires. Whatever happens, the devotee needs to have faith. You can pray, but the devotee's symptom is to have the faith, however it turns out is for my good. So having that attitude, you can pray for anything. And of course, Prabhupada taught us, if you so desire, Krishna, this is what I feel. Whatever you feel is best for me, please do it. So having that faith is also a symptom of devotee, not just praying to Krishna, because the whole world is, a lot of religious people also pray. So gradually, if a devotee, that is whatever is your faith level. If your faith level is today, if my faith level is, I don't care, Krishna, I want this. I don't care about pure devotional service, mixed devotional service. I just want this. If you really strongly feel like that, don't worry. Just go to the Lord, pray. Eventually, he will fulfill it in such a way that you will go back to and pray, I'm very sorry. Hereafter, I'll pray in a different. So that is how. So Krishna clearly says, I will fulfill the wishes of my devotees in a way that is good for their devotional service. So there is no need to go to anybody else. If you're not sure, if you don't want to go to Radha, or you can go to Narasimhadev, not a problem. But all of them are having a pact. So they won't satisfy it in a way that is not good for our devotional service. Even if it externally works out, it might eventually end up teaching us what we need to know or come close to Krishna.
Right. Thank you, Prabhupada.
I'll post that verse later. It is in 5th canto. I'm just not able to recollect the verse number, and I'm not able to juggle the screen. So I'll post you later that verse. It's a very nice verse.
Thank you.
So here, verse 22, Arjuna is beginning his prayers. I would say one of the first prayers in the Bhagavatam. Of course, Sudha Goswami offered his prayers, and that's there. But still, as one of the characters, Arjuna is one of the first personalities in the Bhagavatam to offer some prayer to Krishna. However, later Uttara and Kunti Maharani also will follow in the next chapter. Kunti Maharani is one of the prominent prayers, which is the first prayer offered in the Bhagavatam. And Arjuna is asking protection from Krishna, saying, "Oh my Lord Sri Krishna, you are the almighty personality of Godhead. There is no limit to your different energies. Therefore, only you are competent to instill fearlessness in the hearts of your devotees. Everyone in the flames of material miseries can find the path of liberation in you only." And Prabhupada very beautifully brings in the aspect of spiritual master here. The devotee of the Lord is always fearless because of the protection given by the Lord. Material existence is something like a blazing fire in the forest, which can be extinguished by the mercy of the Lord Sri Krishna. The spiritual master is the mercy representative of the Lord. Therefore, a person burning in the flames of material existence may receive the rains of the mercy of the Lord through the transparent medium of the self-realized spiritual master. The spiritual master, by his words, can penetrate into the heart of the suffering person and inject knowledge transcendental, which alone can extinguish the fire of material existence. So, for in our case, Prabhupada generically saying, taking to the words of the spiritual master can actually penetrate into the heart of a suffering person and inject transcendental knowledge, which alone can extinguish the fire of material existence. Here, Prabhupada is taking the external circumstance of Arjuna and he's making it more internalized. He's saying we are all going through suffering. But when in our suffering, we actually not just turn to Krishna and say, fix my situation, but also turn to the words of the spiritual master, understand the nature of the material world, why we are here, what is the purpose, and why are these sufferings coming to us, and what is the way out. And through the words of the spiritual master, if our hearts could be attracted to Krishna, then which alone can extinguish the fire of material existence. The fire of material existence itself can be extinguished, not just the external heat that we all experience or Arjuna is experiencing in this verse. You are the original personality of Godhead who expands himself all over the creations and is transcendental to material energy. You have cast away the effects of the material energy by dint of your spiritual potency. You are always situated in eternal bliss and transcendental knowledge. Hare Krishna.
You just said that I think devotional service can extinguish not just the fire, but the heat or something like that.
Knowing me, like I really don't speak everything very consciously.
Yeah. Are you making a distinction there or not?
No, I'm not making any distinction. I'm saying either external heat in terms of what Arjuna is experiencing or the problems in our life that we might experience externally. And sometimes that is also creating an internal pain.
Like emotional?
Yeah, especially emotional pain. So sometimes there is a physical, external issue. Sometimes more than that, there is an internal pain. So both can be relieved by taking shelter of of course, I'm not saying if somebody is having a disease, it's not that just hearing about the spiritual master, if they have faith, that's a different thing. But still, we're not speaking about alternate for medical treatments or anything. I'm just saying in external circumstances, maybe a circumstance is so hard on us externally and it's internally also painful. So taking shelter of the words of the spiritual master can help us relieve that and give us transcendental wisdom in that situation.
Okay, so I guess the external situation might be just the circumstances. Maybe it's some conflicts in relationships or a sickness.
Yeah.
But then the internal would be our reaction to those things, no?
Yes.
And so you're saying if we, whatever that means, to take shelter of Guru in those circumstances, which I guess taking shelter of Guru in those circumstances would mean just following their advice as to how to deal with those situations.
True.
Or I don't know what else you would think to say. And following their advice should cool down that anguish.
Yeah.
Something like that.
True. From my little experience, when practicing devotees can go through frustration, in the initial phase, they'll run away from devotional service. They might think, oh, I'm so distressed, I cannot chant. I'm so heartbroken, it's so painful. I don't have any emotional capacity now to chant or to go to temple, be with devotees or hear lectures. No, I don't want. I'm so emotionally distraught that I just don't. They can go into a kind of a hole. They can just cut themselves off from all the nourishment that can actually help them. So eventually, when the problem comes, practicing devotee can sometimes run away from Krishna in the opposite direction. But what is the sign of a devotee who's maturing in bhakti or who has taken shelter of Krishna? When a problem comes, whether the problem comes or not, they're always under the shelter of Krishna. Especially when a problem comes, the first thing they do is they run to Krishna. It's not to fix the problem. It immediately reminds them of Krishna. They don't see anything else as their shelter than Krishna. And it could be taking shelter of chanting. It could be taking shelter of the deities, hearing spiritual masters' lectures, whatever it could be. But whenever there is a problem, if a devotee immediately takes shelter of an activity of devotional service and prays to Krishna, and even if they can understand or not, they actually pray to Krishna. I'm not able to understand. For whether you are able to handle it, not handle it, whether you want it to be bettered or whether whether you know how to handle it or not, if you can turn to Krishna, that's a sign of devotee.
Well, you bring up an interesting point because I think many of us, if not most of us, when there's a problem and you turn to Krishna, it's normally the prayer is, please fix this situation. But here you're saying that the mature devotee, he's not trying to remember Krishna so that the problem will be fixed. And so a lot of us would wonder, then what's the use? If he's not going to fix the problem, then I could do better all by myself, Krishna, that kind of thing. So can you just elaborate on the mood of the devotee who, in the face of a problem, wants to remember Krishna through his names or service or whatever, not to fix the problem, just remember. In other words, can you explain that mood?
We see different kinds of moods of prayers in the Bhagavatam itself, and it's just beginning. And the whole Bhagavatam is like devotees in distress. Such a bad PR, actually, if you think of it. If you want to write a book inspiring everyone in devotional service, you should be writing everybody is happy, jolly, and like really enjoying life, very prosperous, very everything is rosy. But Bhagavatam is written about the life of devotees to inspire us in devotional service.
And everybody's hanging on by a thread.
Everybody is hanging by a thread. That's exactly. And even in that circumstances, different devotees, different personalities turn to Krishna and they have different moods. So there is no one way is the right way, because we have to connect to Krishna where we are, and he is ready to meet us where we are. We don't need to assume where we are not. And we cannot connect to Krishna from where we are not. We cannot assume a position and connect to Krishna from that place.
No, it's artificial.
It's artificial, and it won't be, Krishna will wait for us to realize our own position. So it's better to be honest to where we are. If that's why I was saying, if say, for example, I need a car and it is important to me, and I don't care whether it is pure devotional service or mixed devotional service, all I care is that I really need a car. It's okay. Chant your 16 rounds, follow the regulative principles, do your sadhana nicely. And if you have these small little desires here and there, pray to Krishna. And the more and more when you have faith, add it at the point as Prabhupada prayed. Krishna, this is my desire. I know this is not the best for me, but this, I really want it. So please fulfill.
Yeah, we cannot pretend, we cannot go to Krishna pretending that we're in high school when we're only in the third grade.
So don't tell Krishna that I have no material desires, Nadanam dream. Don't pray, don't stand before Krishna and pray that, offer that prayer.
Yeah,
because then Krishna knows you in your heart is looking for a car, and here praying Nadanam, Nadanam, it's not going to work.
Yeah. So yes, I understand that Krishna wants us to approach him from a place of authenticity. Right? But I still want to understand the mood of those more elevated souls who do not, even though they're in problem, like even heavy problem, but when they go to Krishna, it's not to fix that problem. So why are they going to Krishna just to be reminded of his existence? Is it just because they love him so much that they just want to be reminded of his existence, their relationship, or what is in their heart or mind?
So the nature of the soul is always to be under the shelter of Krishna. And in desperation, there is like a complete helplessness. When everything externally is smooth, that desperation, you cannot artificially create that desperation. So a devotee, the suffering is common in the world for everybody. A materialistic person suffering takes them sometimes away from Krishna in their lamentation or in their anger against God. However, for a devotee, that same suffering gives a desperation, but that desperation, they use it to turn it into helplessness towards Krishna. So when they taste a little nectar in that, when they turn to Krishna in desperation and take shelter, it's not about that issue. The nectar they have experienced in their taking shelter of Krishna, that's what actually inspires them. And the next problem comes, they are like jumping. They know now the shortcut. They know, oh, wow, this is another opportunity to take shelter of Krishna. There is a natural way to be desperate, and I can be fully helpless and call out to Krishna, and I'll again experience that nectar. So it is the nature of a devotee to take shelter of Krishna, and these external circumstances can actually make it much more easier to take shelter of Krishna.
Yeah, I think the missing element here is that in material life, right, nobody wants to feel helpless. It's like a scary kind of situation to be in, and we run from that prospect. But in the case of these elevated devotees, they run towards that feeling of helplessness. It's like I think Giri Govardhan Prabhu in one morning class, he said, it's a helplessness, a happy kind of helplessness, not a fearsome, fearful kind of helplessness.
Almost when it is fearful kind of helplessness, it is called as hopelessness. Almost it is they don't think anyone can help them or anyone can fix them. So they're going like completely crazy because nobody can fix the situation. But here this helplessness is with a complete confidence, Krishna, you can do anything you want. The situation may be out of my control, but the situation is not out of your control.
Yeah, a happy kind of helplessness.
Yeah, happy kind of helplessness.
Which I think we can't relate to.
Honestly, yeah. And Kunti Maharani, she's going to give a master class on that subject in the next chapter.
Somebody's come again and again, right?
Yes.
Okay, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. It's a very interesting question Mother Gail had. I just got one more thought while we were explaining to her. So I was just thinking about Arjuna. He's a pure devotee, and in the start of Bhagavad Gita itself, he is reaching out to Krishna for help. He's saying, Pracheta, that I'm completely confused about my duty, that I should take the path of action and renunciation. For him, action and renunciation means don't fight. He was inclining towards not fighting. He did not want to kill his own relatives who were standing in the opposition army at that time. He did not want to kill Bhishma or Drona. So he was inclining towards that. But at the same time, he was not asking Krishna to support him in that decision. So he was inclining towards a certain decision, but at that same time, he was able to apply his intelligence in a way that he says it very nicely, that intelligence means ability to know what to do when you don't know what to do. So at that time, he was asking Krishna for help, not just consolation of the situation, but also education of the situation, that what shall I really do? So I think that is also an approach. He had something in his mind, he was inclining towards a certain decision, but at the same time, he was ready to hear another perspective from Krishna, be guided from him. So that is probably eventually we will be reaching there. I know I also heard this, Prabhu, very interesting thing, that usually when we approach Krishna, I'm talking about myself, we apply our intelligence and we ask for Krishna's strength to support that intelligence. But actually, eventually it has to move to Krishna, it's your intelligence and your strength. So basically, letting Krishna decide, make the best decision for us. Of course, the endeavor has to be there from our side. It cannot be just Krishna, you do whatever. Endeavor and mercy both has to be there. Endeavor in prayer.
The attitude is like not that this is the solution. I have the plan, you just execute it.
Yes, like basically my intelligence and your strength. So yeah, just wanted to add that point.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful point.
Yeah,
that just brings out such the evolving psychology of practicing devotee.
Yes, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you for sharing. It's 10. It's a little bit of a busy day. So I know I was thinking this is just a story part, so we will finish it today, but we could not. So let me just complete at least this section, and then we can pick it up from 29th verse the next week. So this is Arjuna's prayers. And 23, he's saying, you are the original personality of Godhead who expands himself all over the creations and is transcendental to material energy. You have cast away the effects of the material energy by dint of your spiritual potential. You are always situated in eternal bliss and transcendental knowledge. And yet, though you are beyond the purview of the material energy, you execute the 4 principles of liberation characterized by religion and so on for the ultimate good of the conditioned souls. Thus, you descend as an incarnation to remove the burden of the world and to benefit your friends, especially those who are your exclusive devotees and are constantly wrapped in meditation upon you. O Lord of Lords, how is it that this dangerous effulgence is spreading all around? Where does it come from? I do not understand it. And Krishna is responding, know from me that this is the act of son of Drona. He has thrown the hymns of nuclear Brahmastra, and he does not know how to retract the glare. He has helplessly done this, being afraid of imminent death. O Arjuna, only another Brahmastra can counteract this weapon. Since you are expert in military science, subdue this weapon's glare with the power of your own weapon. So Arjuna turns to Krishna, not able to understand what is this situation after glorifying him. And Krishna is telling him, explaining this is the situation and this is the solution, do this. And let's see what follows. And one interesting parallel that I could also see between the Mahabharata, between the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam is there, Arjuna, Maharishi was saying that Arjuna had a plan that he did not want to fight, and he was just asking for Krishna to help him. Here he even asks, what is the situation? I don't understand what is the situation. Please help me understand this situation and how to handle this. And since he has already learned the lessons of surrender, here he starts with elaborate prayer first. There is no prayer in the Bhagavad Gita. He just starts with justification first. I think this is good. This will cause misfortune. This will cause sins. This will cause social destruction. He first justifies. That is the whole first chapter is just justifications of Arjuna, why he, before even stating his position that I don't want to fight, he starts with all this justification. Sometimes if you see your son or daughter or we ourselves, like when you don't want to do something, you don't say, I don't want to do it, but you start justifying why it should not be done from the beginning. If the child doesn't want to go to school, they'll say it's raining, I feel like little, and finally the word will come, no, I don't want to go to school today. So Arjuna is very much like that. He starts saying, oh, this will cause sin, this will cause misfortune, this, that. And at the end, he says, no, I don't want to fight now. And even after he says in that verse, immediately the next verse says, but I don't want to fight. Before verse, he says, I will accept whatever, me as your student, I'll accept whatever your instruction. But in the next verse, he says, but I don't want to fight. And here we see how, on the contrary, now that he has heard the lesson of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna starts with elaborate prayers. First, he takes his time to pray, and then he direct asks, I'm not able to understand this. Please help me. So it's very clear. The mood is different, though the same personalities are interacting. And we will see the further line of the pastime, how it unfolds and how does Arjuna handle the situation and how Krishna guides him. And we will see that in the coming week. So thank you very much.